August 28, 1945. The engines of the C-54 Skymasters cough and settle into a low hum as they touch down on the cracked tarmac of Atsugi Airfield. This is the heart of a broken empire. For the Japanese nurses watching from the shadows of the hangars, the sight is a nightmare made flesh. They have been told for years that the Americans are kichaku ogres and beasts. They expect violence. They expect the end of their world. The doors of the transport planes swing open. Instead of a wave of infantry with fixed bayonets, a different kind of soldier steps onto the oil-stained concrete. These are the women of the United States Army Nurse Corps and the WACs. They wear olive-drab fatigues, but their hair is neatly pinned under garrison caps. They carry duffel bags, not flags. In the wards of the nearby naval hospitals, the air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, gangrene, and the stale smoke of a city burned to its foundations. The Japanese medical staff move like ghosts. They are malnourished, their skin sallow from a diet of sawdust, bread, and watery gruel. They do not look up when the Americans enter. They keep their eyes fixed on the floor, waiting for the blow to fall. One American nurse reaches into her pocket. She produces a small glass vial-rationed luxury from a world that still knows beauty. She uncorks it. The scent of floral perfume, sharp and sweet, cuts through the stench of the ward. She reaches out and presses the bottle into the hand of a Japanese nurse whose fingers are trembling so violently she can barely grip it. The Japanese woman looks down at the gift. It is a symbol of a life she thought was gone forever. She does not see a conqueror. She sees a woman. The silence of the ward is broken not by a command, but by the sound of a sob. It is a moment of profound, terrifying realization. The war is over, and the enemy has brought flowers instead of fire. By late August 1945, the Empire of Japan is a landscape of charcoal and ash. The strategic reality is absolute. 2 atomic bombs have detonated over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Soviet Union has surged into Manchuria. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito's, voice-thin and crackling over the radio, ordered his people to endure the unendurable. For the first time in over a millennium, Japan prepares for the arrival of a foreign conqueror. The stakes are existential. The Japanese government, led by Prime Minister Suzuki, fears the total dissolution of the Japanese race. Propaganda has been too effective. For years, the civilian population was told that American soldiers would commit unspeakable atrocities. In response, the Home Ministry has issued secret directives to evacuate women from the cities or to provide them with cyanide capsules. The fear of mass violence is so pervasive that a recreation and amusement association is hastily established to create state-sanctioned brothels, a desperate sacrifice of some women to protect the rest. On the American side, General Douglas MacArthur faces a logistical and psychological minefield. He is tasked with the administration of a nation of 70 million people who have been conditioned to fight to the death. The occupation, known as SCAP, must transition from total war to total administration overnight. The primary objective is demilitarization and democratization, but the immediate crisis is biological. Disease and starvation are rampant. The Japanese medical infrastructure has collapsed. There are no bandages, no sulfa drugs, and no anesthesia left in the civilian hospitals. Into this vacuum step the women of the United States military. Their presence is a calculated, strategic move. By sending female nurses and administrative staff into the first wave of the occupation, MacArthur aims to lower the temperature of a volatile population. However, the American women carry their own heavy burdens. Many have lost brothers or husbands in the brutal island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific. They have seen the emaciated remains of Allied prisoners of war. They arrive in Tokyo not with warmth, but with a professional, guarded discipline. The geographical focus shifts to the ruins of Tokyo and Yokohama. These cities are no longer urban centers. They are vast, flat plains of rubble punctuated by the chimneys of destroyed bathhouses. In the center of this wreckage sits the Imperial Hotel and the Daiichi Building, the new hubs of American power. The contrast is jarring. The Americans arrive with massive stockpiles of food, fuel, and medicine technological wealth that the Japanese public has not seen in a decade. The emotional stakes are centered on the point of contact. If the occupation turns into a cycle of insurgency and reprisal, the Pacific War will not truly end. It will simply enter a new, bloodier phase. The burden of preventing this falls, unexpectedly, on the medical wards. The nurses are the first to cross the line of fire. They are the ones who must look into the eyes of the people they were told to hate and find a way to treat them as patients rather than targets. The scent of perfume and the gift of soap are not merely social graces. They are the first tools of a fragile, undeclared peace. The initial days of the occupation are defined by a cold, clinical silence. American nurses are assigned to Japanese military and civilian hospitals to oversee the distribution of aid and the treatment of the sick. The cultural barrier is a physical weight. The Japanese staff move with a mechanical rigidity, performing their duties without speaking. They do not ask for help, even as they wrap wounds in coarse, recycled paper because there is no cotton gauze. The first complication is the sheer scale of the misery. American medical officers find wards filled with Japanese soldiers returning from the front lines of Southeast Asia, skeletal and yellowed by malaria. The Japanese nurses are doing their best to treat them with nothing but herbal salves and boiled water. When the Americans attempt to introduce modern antibiotics like penicillin, they are met with deep suspicion. To many Japanese doctors, the miracle drugs of the victors look like another form of poison. Resistance manifests in small, quiet ways. Japanese nurses will exit a room the moment an American enters. They refuse to eat the chocolate or rations offered to them, fearing they are laced with chemicals intended to make them submissive. The language gap exacerbates every movement. A simple request to move a gurney is often met with a bow and a retreat. The Americans, frustrated by what they perceive as stubbornness, struggle to maintain their professional composure in the sweltering, unventilated wards. The pressure intensifies as the first shipments of American supplies arrive at the docks of Yokohama. These are not just crates of medicine, but personal footlockers. Inside are the small comforts of the West: Pond's cold cream, Maybelline mascara, and bottles of evening in Paris perfume. These items were scarce even in the United States during the war. But to the Japanese women, they are artifacts from a different dimension. The turning point begins with a logistical necessity. The Americans realize they cannot manage the health crisis alone. They need the local nurses to administer the new vaccines. To bridge the gap, the American women begin to share their personal hygiene kits. They demonstrate how to use scented soap to scrub for surgery, and they offer hand lotions to women whose skin has been chapped and broken by years of caustic lye and manual labor. The friction remains high. Many Japanese women are torn between their duty to their country and the undeniable relief provided by these gifts. There is a documented sense of shame in accepting anything from the enemy. Yet, as the weeks pass, the physical reality of the occupation begins to shift. The smell of the hospitals starts to change. The pervasive scent of rot and old bandages is slowly replaced by the clinical, sharp smell of antiseptic and the faint, lingering trail of floral powder. The barrier is not breaking, but it is thinning. In a converted naval barracks near Yokohama, the tension of the occupation reaches a quiet, definitive peak. A group of American nurses, led by a head nurse with the rank of captain, enters a ward where Japanese staff are processing a new arrival of repatriated soldiers. The air is stagnant. The Japanese nurses are exhausted, their uniforms patched and gray. They have been on duty for 18 hours. The exchange begins when an American nurse notices a Japanese counterpart attempting to clean a surgical instrument with a scrap of rough cloth. The American reaches into her satchel and pulls out a small blue glass bottle of French perfume and a tin of luxury talcum powder. She does not offer them as a superior to an inferior. She places them on the small wooden table between them. The Japanese nurse hesitates. She looks at her supervisor, then at the bottle. For 4 years, beauty has been discarded as frivolous and unpatriotic by the Japanese military government. To wear scent or makeup was seen as a betrayal of the soldiers dying in the mud of Guadalcanal or Burma. Slowly, she reaches out and opens the vial. The scent lavender and rose fills the immediate space. It is a sensory shock. The Japanese nurse brings the bottle to her face and begins to cry. These are not the tears of a defeated subject, but a visceral release of years of suppressed humanity. One by one, the other Japanese nurses gather around. They are not looking at the American women with fear or hatred. They are looking at the perfume. The Americans respond by opening more kits. They begin to apply small amounts of scented cream to the Japanese women's hands. The act is intimate and subversive. In this moment, the rigid hierarchies of victor and vanquished collapse. The American women see the toll the war has taken on their counterparts, the malnutrition, the grief, the hollowed-out eyes. The Japanese women see that the demons possess a gentleness they were told was impossible. Outside, the machinery of the occupation continues to grind. Tanks patrol the streets, and the Diet debates the new constitution. But inside this ward, the war ends in a small circle of women. There are no cameras to record it, and no generals to sign a treaty. There is only the shared recognition of femininity and the mutual understanding of what it means to survive. The Japanese nurses, still weeping, begin to work alongside the Americans with a new, frantic energy. The wall of silence has been breached by a fragrance. The tears shed in the medical wards of 1945 were the first drops of a sea change in Japanese society. The occupation did not just bring medicine and military governors, it brought a radical redefinition of the status of Japanese women. In 1946, less than a year after the first exchange of perfume, Japanese women voted for the first time in history. The new American-drafted Constitution explicitly guaranteed gender equality, a concept that had been alien to the militaristic patriarchal structure of the imperial era. The strategic shift was profound. The soft power displayed by the female corps of the U.S. Army proved to be one of the most effective tools in the pacification of Japan. While the male infantry provided the muscle of the occupation, it was the nurses and WACs who provided the bridge. They demonstrated a model of independent professional womanhood that deeply influenced the younger generation of Japanese girls. The Perfume incident, and others like it, became part of the oral history of the occupation, a story of how a shared sense of dignity could survive the most brutal conflict in human history. The human cost, however, remained visible for decades. Thousands of Japanese nurses continued to serve a population recovering from radiation sickness and chronic tuberculosis. The American women eventually went home, but they left behind more than just empty bottles of scent. They left behind a medical infrastructure that would become one of the most advanced in the world and a memory of a time when a simple gesture of kindness outweighed the bitterness of defeat. Today, the historical lesson of this period is found in the power of small-scale diplomacy. It serves as a reminder that the official narratives of war maps, troop movements, and signed treaties often miss the most critical turning points. The true end of the Pacific War was not found only on the deck of the USS Missouri, but in the quiet wards where two groups of women decided that the smell of flowers was better than the smell of cordite. The legacy of the occupation is complex and often debated, but the moment the Japanese nurses cried remains a grounded reflection on our shared humanity. It suggests that even in the aftermath of total war, there is a common language that transcends propaganda. It is a language of touch, of care, and of the small, beautiful things that make life worth living.